which is a B2B company in the parking domain. I passed out of IIT Bombay in 2011 in aerospace engineering, and I also hold a degree from the Industrial Design Center at IIT Bombay as a minor, along with the aerospace degree. So today we'll talk about product management and primarily the difference between am I audible? Is the voice clarity fine?
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. So I thought someone was trying to say something. Yeah. All right, so today we talk about product management, and specifically we talk about enterprise, the difference between enterprise products and consumer products. What do you need to know about these type of users? What are the skill sets required as product manager to ace in building these products? And I'd like to start off by sharing my own story. I know a lot of you people are trying to get into product management. You might be looking at product management roles, targeting technology. So let me share my story. I hope you find some relations to it, to your journey, and hopefully it would seem helpful to you. So I passed out of IIT in 2011. I soon joined a venture capitalist firm called Nadathur Estates, which is based in Bangalore. I worked as a business analyst, trying to find information and do market research for companies which this venture capitalist firm is investing in. And that's how I got to know about startups and technology in general. And I soon started looking out for working in a startup. And I did a lot of cold emailing to startups in Bangalore, and I was able to get a meeting with the CEO of this company called SourceBits. They were into the product services space, but they had an office in Silicon Valley in San Francisco. So I thought it would be a good start. After a very good meeting, I was in fact immediately offered a role as an associate product manager in the company. To be really honest, way back in 2012, I had no idea what product management was. And everything felt new to me, but I quickly got on the ropes. Was able to work on several products by the time I left the company, which was in 2015 after it got acquired. So I joined TinyOwl soon after. I was the first product manager in the company outside of the founding team members. If you've heard about TinyOwl, it was one of the earliest food delivery companies in India. And this was way back in 2014, 15, way before Swiggy was started to dominate. In fact, Swiggy was just starting off back then. I was able to work with a technology team there, and we were able to scale the product from 50,000 users to probably 500,000 users in a span of 8 months. We also scaled up orders or food delivery orders from 30,000 orders in a month to probably 1 million orders by the time I left. So it gave me a great insight about working in a B2C company setup. I soon joined an enterprise by the name of SL Group. You must have heard about it, famous SL World. So they were venturing into the digital domain. I was brought in to lead certain new products on the digital side. They were doing some digital transformation projects. So I worked on certain products on food delivery and content space. So working with SL Group gave me a unique insight about how big corporations operate in itself, and that helped me understand things when I joined GetMyParking in end of 2017, where GetMyParking is primarily into the B2B space, and we work with parking operators who are generally big organizations. So I could carry all my learnings into GetMyParking and sort of build the platform which we see today. All right. So what are we talking about today? So before we talk about before we touch upon the main topic, I'd like to mention this statement by Mark Anderson, who is the head of one of the biggest venture capitalist firms in Silicon Valley in technology. software is eating the world. In fact, you can see it everywhere. Technology and software products are all around us. Our lives are increasingly being shaped upon us. And it seems to be a very exciting place to be. And I'm with you if you're excited about it. And you can imagine just 15 years back, there were no products which you recognize today, right? Maybe Google and Facebook and Amazon, they were just starting off, but companies like Slack, Snapchat, etc., didn't exist. And we have seen in the last 10 to 15 years how the humble smartphone has pretty much replaced everything you see in front of you in your household, as both in software and on the hardware side of things. So it's an exciting place to be, is all I can say. So without any further ado, let's talk about the topic which I've been brought here to talk about today. So we will cover primarily, understand what a business is, what an enterprise is, and what an end consumer is, right? I'm not sure what this is. Okay, just ignore the blue line there, which I'm not sure how it is appeared. Anyway, so I think anyone can draw stuff on this presentation. Nikin, is it possible to disable that for the moment?
Yeah, one second. You go ahead. I'll do that.
Sure. All right. Sorry about the interruption, folks. So we'll primarily talk about businesses, enterprises, who is behind them, what's the face they have, what kind of problems they face, and end consumers like you or me. How do we interact with the software world around us? Right. So just a question for you guys. So what kind of product do you think Zoom is? Can you use I would say, can you have a show of hands for people who think it's a B2C product? And can you show of hands who think it's a B2B product? Right. Yeah. I mean, a lot of you have already sort of guessed it. It's both. So Zoom is a unique example of, I would not say not so unique example of a product which is of both B2C and B2B type. We'll soon understand how to recognize this in following slides. Right. Let's put a face on to what we are talking about today. Could you go on mute, please? Who has the microphone on? All right. So first, let's talk about businesses. These are generally big organizations. Basically, anything which is a legal entity and which works for a profit is mostly is an organization. They generally know what they need. They know which space they're operating in, what problems they're solving in the market, and how any product or a feature can improve that. And they generally have deep pockets. Anyone who can solve a problem for them, typically, they're willing to pay money for a product or solution which can solve their problems. And typically, problems are finding revenue leakages, improving costs, improving efficiency, etc. Right. So as you can imagine, these are big companies with maybe tens, hundreds, thousands, and thousands of employees working on it. They're pretty complex. They're multi-layered, and generally it takes a lot of time to get your foot in the door into selling a product to these companies. Whereas end consumers, they are very relatable. They are people like you and me, or our parents or grandparents. They're individuals primarily. They might or might not know what they need unless you put the product in front of them. They generally likes to try stuff for free, and they are mostly spoiled for choice. You can imagine choice provided to an individual as if you walk to a supermarket and you look at products on the shopping aisles. There's so many products out there. If you are building for a B2C consumer, you might want to really stand out. And generally, if they like something, they buy it on the spot, or if they don't like something, they just ignore the product, ignore you, and they never come back again. So it's very necessary to target these users very carefully in the beginning. Right. So let us talk about how products look in these two spaces, right? So you would have heard about Freshdesk, Zoho, or Slack. Probably not, because they're primarily used within companies, and they might not be exposed to the end consumer. So these products generally solve a business problem. For example, Slack addresses the problem of I would say, reducing communication challenges and increasing collaboration in companies. They're generally targeted at multiple user roles. For example, let's say I, as a CEO of the company, might just, if I'm using Slack, I might just want to see how it's performing. I would like to see reports how people are communicating. But as an end consumer, an employee might be just worried about what features they have to make them easier to communicate with their colleagues and share stuff with their colleagues, right? And typically, if you want to introduce this product into a company, you'll have to think about impacting entire teams in the company. For example, if the company is using, let's say, a very old example, Yahoo Chat, if you've heard about it, you're replacing it with a new system, which is Slack for communication. You might want all these teams who are using it to discontinue it and then use the new product. You'll have to plan for that as well. And whereas end consumer products, are very familiar, most probably because you are aware of it, you've seen it, you use it yourself, or you use it, or you hear it from your friends, right? So, these products generally meet an individual's need or desire, but need not solve a problem generally. They can just be filling a gap which does not exist in the market anymore. We'll probably talk about it down the line. And as you can imagine, there are close to 7.5 billion people in the world. A consumer product, there is no limit to growth potential. We can potentially reach to all the humans on the planet if they have a smartphone or a connection or an internet connection for that matter. Right. Let's touch upon how do we decide what to build, right? There's so many products out there. There are a lot of platforms and software which these companies and individuals are already using. So how do we decide what to build, what you need to build, right? Let me just pause a minute. So Nikunj, is it possible to get rid of the blue line by any chance?
Yeah, it's on participants actually. And finally, we had sort of given that feature, and basically either you start the call again. So I would rather suggest go carry on. It's just one line.
All right. No worries. As long as it's not not distracting, I'm okay with it. All right. So businesses, you can imagine, these are companies, and clearly they know what space they're operating in. For example, let's say ITC. ITC clearly knows it's into FMCG. They're into fast-moving consumer goods, and you can sort of put a value on what your product can provide to the company in terms of very well-known metrics like how much money that you can make for the company, how much cost you can save, also how much efficiency you can improve. So clearly, you have a very very clear problem definition there, right? And as well, you can just pick up the phone, do some cold emailing, or try to get someone within the company, set up a meeting with them, and probably pitch the product directly. So you have a channel to get feedback directly from the end consumer here, and that. It proves very helpful in putting a face onto this user who's using the product and to build for them. Whereas for individuals, I must say there is a saying from Henry Ford which resonates very closely with me, which I'd like to share with you guys. So it says if I had to ask people what they wanted, right, they would have said faster horses. This is way back in 1905 when Henry Ford, the owner and the creator of Ford automobiles, was designing the automobile itself. So if you ask people what they need, they might just say something which is better or faster than what already exists, but they might not be able to think radically different what can be offered to them. So they often do not know what they need, and it takes a lot of data analysis, market research, talking to a lot of people, doing surveys to build the picture about the user before you go about building for them. And if you already have a product, you might use a lot of tools like data analytic tools, uh, tools which helps you see how users interact with your product on the screen, etc., to be able to understand your user. Right. So you sort of know what to build, right? But let's hear from the other side what they think they expect from your product. So B2B, on the B2B side, it generally is clear what these companies need. Let me just explain all of these features or like all of these attributes with an example. Let's say you are an IT manager in a company and someone from Slack approaches you to integrate Slack into your company, right? I, as end user, would, as an IT manager, would like to see if the product, which is Slack in this case, covers all the existing functionality which I have. The company might be using separate chat tools, mail tools, like calendar tools. I'd like to see if this product, seamlessly integrates with all of these, and I'd like to see if it provides a direct benefit, ROI, basically. And primarily, since I am a big organization and as a legal entity, I'd like to see if the security, privacy, and data of the users and the organization is safe with this product company, right? So these considerations are very different for a B2C company, let's say. For example, take Spotify, right? So a lot of companies existed before which helped you to like save music, but Spotify did it in a way like never before. It provided an extremely good user interface and user experience. It need not solve a new need, but it might fill a need of a better user experience, which does not exist in the market. And users generally look for products which are slick, modern, and good looking. And sometimes, for example, for Snapchat, you might even fill a gap which never existed. Products like that never existed before, but Snapchat introduced them with a great interface, and people just took to it. So there are different considerations we'll have to pay attention to for targeting these two types of users. And finally, you've decided, you've defined what you want to build. You pretty much have, let's say, the features covered. Now, how do you get to your users, right? How do you get them to use your product? You've built a product now. Now, how do you get them to use it? So the sales journey itself is going to be very different as well for an enterprise and an end consumer. For enterprise software, you generally have long sales cycles. You have a dedicated sales team who speaks to these companies, gets their foot in the door. Like they try to like get leads, arrange some meetings, some initial contact, a lot of negotiation, and finally the deal is signed. But whereas for an end consumer, they might hear about your product from a lot of different channels which exist in the market, right? Online marketing, basically clicking on ads on Facebook, Instagram. Also, it could be offline. You could see a poster outside your favorite restaurant, advertising for a food delivery startup. Or you can hear a friend talking to you about it, and your friend shares the link. You click on the link, you download the app, and then boom, you have it in your hand. So it's as simple as that. So there's spontaneous conversion cycles, and generally, people, the end consumers, if they like it, they really take to it. If they do not, they just not pay attention to you anymore, unless you come up with a very different version in the future. And finally, how do you make money? I mean, all of this has to add up to something, and it should drive in some moolah to the company, right? and cover your costs. So B2B companies generally have, they very rarely have, I would say, a free plan. They generally have something called a subscription plan where you can sign up based on how many users in the organization are going to use your product, and then provide information or like billing information to them. So this is called a subscription type of, I would say, a business model, which is primarily famous for the B2B space. And the amount of money which you make per user is significantly higher in the B2B space, because these companies are not willing to, or rather they're willing to pay money to solve a problem. And if a product can demonstrate value, they're willing to pay for it. Whereas for end consumers, they are generally used to freebies and free stuff, a lot of free trials. So there are different business models out there for end consumers. Some of them are like freemium. You probably hear about it when you keep exploring different products. Freemium means the user tries it for free, but if they would like to use certain features or upgrade their account, they'll have to pay some amount. And generally, ads are coupled with with products which offer their services free. For example, gaming companies, they might give the game itself for free, but they might make money by displaying ads for the user. And typically, the purchase is instantaneous. As you can imagine, you just get the user to enter their credit card details, and then boom, they have it. But that said, the price per transaction is generally lower, and people are willing to pay little or nothing to use your product. So monetization becomes very tricky, and coupled with facing heavy competition, customers generally do not have an incentive to stick. Hence, your product has to really stand out. Right. So is there something called a B2C product? You might have probably not heard it very often, but these are products which offer both B2B and B2C, I would say, platforms or features within the same product. For example, WhatsApp offers a free service for the users, but they also offer an enterprise service for businesses called WhatsApp for Business. Similarly, we have a similar setup for Instagram. And of course, you know about Zoom. They have a brilliant marketing in which free users can make calls up to 40 minutes, but which is not enough for business consumers, and they pay more to unlock more features on Zoom and to use Zoom. So, there's very different types of business models which are evolving over time, but mostly they can be grouped under B2B, B2C, or both as category. Right. So I'll probably pause for a minute and address a question or two from you guys before we move on to a more critical discussion around how the PM roles differ.
So, Kushal, I wanted to ask a question that I've got from a couple of attendees. People generally ask me, how do you approach a particular interview at a B2B company like a Fresh Desk compared to, say, if I'm interviewing at a B2C company, something like a Hotstar? So how does an approach from a candidate change when he's interviewing at a B2B setup compared to a B2C setup? If that's something that you can share.
Good question. Good question. In fact, it was an interesting question because I faced the situation when I was joining GetMyParking. I've never worked in a B2B company before, and I was wondering the same. So what I want to share with everyone is that, at the end of the day, as a product manager, your role is to uncover user needs and user problems, understand the setting in which the user operates. For example, is the user in an office? What kind of software does he use in an office? What does it do generally? As opposed to, let's say, a user who is chatting with a friend, right? Or playing a game with a friend. The settings differ, but you still want to understand the user, uncover the problem which you are trying to address as a product. Pretty much there's a lot of overlap between product management principles which you use. But that said, something which a person in, let's say, interviewing for a B2B company has to keep in mind is it is expected that you know a lot about the industry in which the product is working in. You're selling to big companies, right? And to make a product credible, the product has to address the deep needs of the industry. So it's very necessary that you understand the industry in it. But whereas for a B2C product manager, you generally need not understand the market in which the product is operating in completely. You can still wing it by uncovering the user needs and probably like doing a lot of market research and measuring the users, I would say, interaction with the product before suggesting some features or improvements to it. So and the second consideration is that in the B2B side, you're building the same product for different types of users. It could be the CEO of company. The product might need to have a different feature like reports, admin controls, security. Whereas for a different, let's say, an employee, you might just be addressing the need which helps them do the job easier, right? In the B2C space, you're generally addressing like your product version doesn't change a lot across different users. So you might want to pick like one or two personas and build the features for them. But you need not focus too much on like changing the product to fit different user personas in the B2C space. And there's a lot of emphasis on data analytics and tracking user behavior in the B2C space as compared to B2B.
Okay. Guys, if you have any questions with respect to product management, getting into product management, approaching interviews, assignments, just put it on chat. Since the size of this meeting is 70 plus, we don't know, it'll be pretty difficult to manage. So just put it on chat. I'll read out your questions and take it one by one. We'll pause for like 30 seconds. If you have any questions, you can also ask questions at the end of the session.
Cool. So let me continue. Let's have those questions. Please keep asking questions in the chat. We'll probably collate these questions towards the end, and I'll have a lot of time to then address your questions and queries.
Kushaal, we've got one question on the chat.
Sure. Yeah.
So Kunal has asked, where do you stop in B2C? I mean, there are so many personas. Can you check?
Good.
And
very good question.
Kushaal, you might just want to unshare your screen and then share. I think then the blue thing will go away. Someone has probably annotated, and yeah, you can just share it.
Oh, excellent. Let me just try that again.
Yep.
Oh,
here we are.
Perfect. Thanks, whoever it is. All right. All right. Thanks for the question, Kunal. It is very valid, actually. Where you draw a line in defining and building features into your product, right? So what works the best for a B2C product, right, or addressing consumer, is to identify a certain set or subset of users who would completely love the product and focus your features around addressing their needs, right? Obviously, you can't make everyone happy, and I mean, doing that would definitely kill the product with a lot of unwanted features, which probably half the people would not use at any time. So a better way to describe your question and the answer to it is product market fit. So what product market fit talks about is identifying the minimum bare number of features which address a valid problem for a certain set of consumers. basically people who are very excited to use your product, understand what they like about your product and build around it. People who are marginally interested or not might not be very good users to get feedback from in the beginning. So I would say as a B2C product manager, you might want to double down on a few features which excite a set of users and do them really well, right? Snapchat had released, they just did like they just did ephemeral chat or like a temporary chat which disappeared. They didn't bother about any new features. They just did that so well that people just loved the product and then came back. So they offered a very frictional experience around it. So you need not do everything and be everything for everyone. As long as you can identify your core set of users and problem and certain features which can address that.
So I want to take a crack at that question as well. Just by thinking of first principle, any company that starts out, they target a narrow niche audience. Say when Uber had started, they didn't think of anyone who wanted to go out and book a ride. They started with sales professionals, people who are, say, business managers about 35 years of age and who would want to use the black car service. So any product that starts out, they start with one particular user persona to answer your canal. Because so you can't have like a broad persona. You start with the user persona कि मेरा user इस age bracket में है. My user has this working professional life, and this is the role he is used to, and you target that. So your communication, your marketing, your website, copies, everything aligns to that user persona. And once you have maxed out, reach like a critical mass ceiling for that user, you decide, okay, I've reached this audience. Now I want a different set of users who would be using your, say, Uber car service. That's why we started the black car service first, say Uber, a different sort of service, and they started Uber Pool later when they wanted to reach out the massy audience. Similarly, giving an example of Pinterest, when they started out, Pinterest was not for anyone and everyone. They started out targeting moms who are 35 plus and not working. That's what the Pinterest groups were early on. And then slowly and steadily, they expanded to different user personas. Kushal, there is one more interesting question from Mohini. If someone is getting into product management, what should they prefer, B2B or B2C?
Right. Thanks for the question, Mohini. In fact, I think I'll proceed with the presentation. I have some material which talks exactly, which addresses this question exactly. And I think let's go ahead with the presentation. Maybe it'll be a little clear.
Go ahead, Kushaal. Mohini and Sarup, we will answer your questions at the end of the session. Don't worry. We make sure we answer your questions. Yeah.
All right. So how will the roles differ for a product manager who is deciding between a B2B or B2C company? As I mentioned earlier, we product managers are, our role is to identify a problem which the user is facing. I would probably like go back and call it valid user problems and focus on building something which addresses that, right? There's a lot of overlap between the tools and methodologies which the product manager uses in these two addressing or building products for these two platforms. What changes primarily is, how the strategy is built, basically what kind of goals each product manager has in working in these type of products, and execution, because inherently we are addressing very different types of users end of the day. All right, so let's talk about it. I'll just touch upon what are the I would say key points you should like to remember as being a product manager in the business side first, and then the consumer side. So you need to really know your industry. Let's say you're in the communication space. Let's say you're in Microsoft, right? And you're trying to, launch a new version of an Office or a new tool for big companies. You really need to understand how these companies operate and use existing tools before you even think about building something. So you really need to have a deep knowledge of the industry, because you and your product are need to uphold the credibility of these business users. And for them to trust you, you have to demonstrate you know more than them. And additionally, you need to have clear vision, more on the B2B side than the B2C side, because these are big businesses. Sometimes your clients could be someone in the Fortune 50 or Fortune 100 or 100 biggest companies in the world who you want to target. Everyone can come with very different needs, right? And unless you have a very clear goal and vision for how your product and product journey should be, it becomes very easy that it very easily becomes you know, a product which tries to satisfy everyone, but at the end of the day satisfies no one, right? So it's very necessary to have a clear vision. And I just talked about it. There's certain key, once you operate in the B2B space, there might be certain clients who generate probably the majority of the revenue, which is being driven into the company. And these key customers might influence your roadmap, and they might ask you to build something very custom, or you know, for example, Slack. Let's say Slack is operating for ITC, and they've asked for you know, a plugin which talks about the weather. Just a completely random example, right? Which probably no other company needs. But do you build it or not is a very key question which you'll have to constantly ask yourself when you're fielding all of these queries or feature requests. And it becomes a very important to balance customization with you know, complexity. You don't want to make the product too complex, but then you want to find a way to address these needs. Probably just turn on these features for specific clients and not allow others to be bothered with it, right? So you have to balance complexity fairly. And finally, you'll have to like really plan out your releases. Typically, B2B products are generally, you know, you'll have to work with multiple teams internally as well, working on different features of your product. It's not that easy to plan out releases because you'll have to probably get your business owners or clients to, you need to inform them and prepare them for a release so that it does not impact their existing workflows and it does not disrupt their business in any sense. So you'll have to do a lot of testing when you're like releasing new features. Whereas for consumers, so as we discussed earlier, it's quite difficult to understand what the ideal consumer is and build a picture around it. So it becomes very necessary for you to experiment a lot, capture a lot of data on the behavior, how they're using your app, and also analyze this data to build a picture. And of course, you'll have to have an instinct of understanding their end consumer, being in their shoes before you build any new feature. And you really need to be very curious to chase data to obtain unique insights, because mostly the B2C side, the products which come out in the market do not exist. So you have to build that conviction that hey, you know, let's try this new feature out, or like let's build this product and see how it goes. And you'll probably have to really understand your end consumer to be able to assess if it might work or not. Of course, you have to back it up with data. So a simple example of that would be Instagram, right? Before Instagram, we had a lot of you know, platforms, but Instagram really gave a new face to it, a new interface, and a new way for people to engage socially online, which never existed before. So you really need to like you know, try to get insights from a lot of different places and try to build a picture together. There's no easy way to get requirements on the B2C side. And of course, we have a different problem in terms of, different set of complexity problems in the B2C space, mostly with volume. You might, if your product does really well, you might hit millions, maybe tens or hundreds of millions of users. You'll have to really plan out for scale, you know, analyze every little feature before you actually build it, because anything you add to your product will add complexity, and millions of people potentially will use that feature. So you might want to get that right. But the flip side is for the consumer, you can do any number of releases, especially if you're on the web. If you're a web product, you can probably do you can roll out several versions within a day. That's how Facebook does it, and run a lot of A/B testing and usability testing to see what's working, and then switch to that version, right? Generally, end consumers are not very fussy about releases and how often you release product, as long as they know that the product is improving and they're getting a better experience out of it. Right. I'll probably leave this slide for a minute for you guys to look at it, but I'll just gloss over the main features of this. So as you can see, there is a contrast between what kind of tools and skills a B2B product manager would use compared to B2C. So the core remains the same. Obviously, you're looking at user feedback, you're looking at experimentation, user onboarding, etc. But on the B2B side, you have direct access to customer feedback. You can just call up your clients, set up meetings, and get feedback from them directly, or talk to the customer service team, right? So your focus would be trying to understand the pain points of your consumer mostly, and also designing solutions, prototyping them, and displaying it back to them and getting their feedback. So this becomes much easier if you're working on the B2B side. Whereas on the B2C side, it's not that easy to get hold of and consumer and trying to like pick their brain. Even if you are able to find 50 people to talk to, if your user or if your product has a million users, they might not represent your entire user base, right? So you rely a lot on data and experimentation. You set up tools to capture how the users tap on the app, what do they click, which screen they spend most time on, and you run experiments on them, like try different variations of the same image that you use in, let's say, in the product, or you could change the color of the button for pay. These are very simple examples. You can make it as complex as you can get, and then try to get more feedback to flow back into your product. And something which I emphasized quite a bit previously is you also focus quite a bit on user onboarding. You have probably a single chance to impress your user, probably seconds to do that once they download the app and try to use it. And you might want to focus on giving them a wow experience when they do that. Typically users who do not like something, even though it's a decent product, if it does not match up to the best in the market, they might probably just delete the app and not think about it and forget about your product in seconds after that. So it becomes very necessary to guide the user to have great onboarding on your product. All right. Right. So there's a lot of talk about consumer products, right? They seem to be taking all the attention. You would hear about, a lot of these companies in the news. People talk about what kind of fundraising they have done in the past couple of months, how much money they've raised, how many users they have. And you as consumers use it on a daily basis. So you sort of have a bias towards liking consumer products. But let me just say, let me provide a case for enterprise products as well. I would say some of the, I would say, surprising facts about enterprise products is that they generally have a bigger funding amount than a B2C customer. They generally raise, I would say, and also they're soon surpassing the total funding amount which is provided to a B2C product space as well. So they're gaining popularity, and of course, a lot of enterprise products are now focusing on usability. Slack is an extremely good example for that. They've really revolutionized how enterprise software should look and feel. So a lot of emphasis on usability And also enterprise products are now skipping the sales layer. So I talked about enterprise companies, product companies having sales team to sell your product. They're bypassing the sales teams and reaching out to the end consumers directly, like software as a service model. Basically, a business can go to a website and sign up to use the product directly, right? So a lot of, I would say, like a lot of good work is happening in the enterprise space to bridge the usability gaps, the wow factor with the consumer space. And you should also not forget the fact that businesses, if they like your product, they really are going to pay you money. So you might have, if your product is reasonably good, you might have a solid chance of having or like I would say generating revenue from day one. So while you still figure out the monetization model for a B2C product which you built or your company has built. All right. So I'll just talk very briefly about a few key takeaways, through this presentation, which I'd like you guys to take back. First and foremost, if you're in the B2B, if you're working on a B2B product or a B2C product, end of the day, you're building for people. And these people have emotions, aspirations, goals, and pain points in life. So you have to be very mindful about trying to understand your end consumers before you build anything. It's just that their setting is different. B2B consumers have an office setting properly most of the time, and B2C consumers have a more leisure setting. End of the day, are people. You would want your product has to address their needs to be successful. Second is know your strengths. I hope through the presentation you have built a picture around what B2B companies generally look like and what it seems like to work for them as compared to B2C companies. You might want to like reflect on your strengths. For example, do you like talking to people, or do you like looking at data and trying to build a picture about the user, for example? Do you like experimentation, or do you like something concrete and you're an excellent executor? Basically, something which is given to you, you execute it very well. So you basically need to understand your skills and strengths and try to overlap these with what these product or these two type of product platforms demand, right? And finally, of course, there is always an option to try working in both types of platforms, right? I must say I was very skeptical initially to work for a B2B company, because I've been working for probably 5.5 years before that, primarily in the B2C space. I know how to build stuff for consumers directly. Will I do a good job in a B2B space? Those are the questions I had. But at the end, I took the leap of faith, and then I jumped. And I must say, I'm really enjoying my journey so far at GetMyParking. The problem which is solving, which is parking, is super relevant today in the industry, in the world, in fact. And we're building some cool stuff for our clients in Europe, the US, Southeast Asia, to to leverage or like to address this problem. And I would probably not have experience what I'm experiencing in trying to build a product, a B2B product, if I had still stuck to B2C, working in B2C company, right? So try both. You might, in fact, use insights from working from previous platform to a new platform. It can bring unique insights and probably build something which the world might like end of the day. So try both. There's enough time to experiment in your life as well before you finalize what you want to be, where you want to be, basically. And finally, I'd like to end by saying that now is probably the most exciting time to be in the software domain, in technology especially. And product managers are forefront in pushing the envelope there. And the world has pretty much moved in technology, and it's not going to go back. Although how the users interact with your product might change, we might move away from, let's say, smartphones as a medium, or websites, to, let's say, wearables, right? Or holograms, interfacing with holograms, or like projections on the walls and interacting with it. So the future is very uncertain and very exciting place to be. No one knows exactly where we are headed, and it'll be super cool to be on on the wave, or rather to ride the wave, to see where the future takes us, right? And technology is one thing which we might probably take to places that we should never experience before. With this, I'll probably end the presentation and open up the forum for any questions you might have.
So guys, please add your questions. I'll start with the existing set of questions already asked on chat. So Kushal and Ankit, we have a question from Krishna. Is there any difference in the product manager's work in an established product company versus, say, a new product startup? Right. I want Kushal why don't you sort of share your insights, and then I'll move to Ankit.
Sure. Excellent question, actually. I primarily worked in companies which probably had no users, and we are just starting off from scratch. I've also worked in companies which already have an established product, right? So I'll just talk about the first case, right? So if you're working on startups which are just starting off with a new product which has not existed in the market before, and which has not yet nailed the product market fit. So that's what I call early stage startups. Basically the emphasis would be on experimentation a lot. You try to talk to a lot of users, you prototype, and you show your potential features and products, put it in front of a lot of users before building anything, get their feedback before you actually build the product, and you measure every little bit of the insights which these users provide. So basically you're riding a sort of an uncharted territory. If you do not have product market fit, you're trying out different things in your product. You're trying to identify the end consumer. A lot of emphasis on trying out new things, new features, doing a lot of research and prototyping. And whereas in contrast to an established company, so when I say an established company, this is probably a product which has obtained a market fit, or it has got certain number of users who are either using the product on a daily basis or paying for it. So there is some certainty in it. In this situation, you might want to find out what few features are working great for for these users, and spend a lot of energy into making that better and to get more users, right? So a lot depends on the stage in which your company is in, and especially in the beginning stages, your focus might be to get users to use your product. You're trying to figure out how to get them to pay, but that comes secondary to users using the product. Again, this perspective comes from a B2C experience perspective. On the B2B side, I would say getting your foot in the door with certain corporates or businesses to use your product and pay for it would be your focus. In the initial stages of a B2B company, it generally is very difficult to convince a big company to just pay for your product if you're in the initial stages. So you're looking at strategic partnerships and connects between these companies to somehow get your product inside the door and get feedback. So I would probably say a lot depends on what stage the product is. Do you have market fit or not? What kind of users do you have? What is it, a B2C product or B2B product? Are you making money, etc., etc. A lot of factors contribute to how you would do.
So just to add to what Kushal said, it's very, so you'd find companies who are, say, scaled would look for product managers who have worked with, say, scale. By scale, I mean, you might have worked in a company wherein you have started getting downloads from 0 to, say, 1 lakh. That's a very different skill set from a product manager who has handled growth from an app which grows from 1 mil to 10 mil. 10 million users. So you would say at early stage, just breaking down in two buckets, early stage, the product manager would be someone who understands acquisition and activation, like the user first time realizing the value, because a lot of experiments you'll have to conduct to figure out, okay, this is where the users are, say, using my product, or what's working, what's not working. And established or stable product companies would be looking at specific metrics that they have already identified. Say a company like Zomato, they would be looking at orders, or different geography wise orders, and they might have already maximized India specific markets. They would be looking at, say, scaling different geographies, different challenges, right? Say for Zomato, they might be looking at, I'm getting revenue X quarter on quarter. How can I max it out? Maybe I add new use cases to the product, say make Zomato like a super app, or I launch Zomato in different geographies. So different challenges. Obviously, early stage, it's more like figuring out what's the right use case for the product. And for scale companies, you want product managers who have experienced scale and worked at that kind of a setup. We'll move to the next question. Ritik asked, if someone has experience of project management and marketing, how should they approach a product interview? And basically, what are the skills that he or she requires if this person has only, say, project management or marketing exposure?
Right. I would say, having worked in product management and marketing, you've covered two core skill sets which product managers should need. From a marketing perspective, is trying to understand your end users. So you probably would have built a knowledge and skill set about trying to understand what a user needs. How do we what are their emotions like? How do you address these emotions? So you would probably have a picture about how to target your user. And with project management, you would probably know how to organize building for this particular user. What other skill sets you would probably want to add as complementary to this is framing the problem, right? So basically, identifying the problem still stays the core of building a product. If your product does not identify a very relevant problem, or a problem in which a user, which solves a user's need better than the alternatives which exist today, no one's going to use it. So I think identifying problems and breaking it down it into features or which can address this problem is a complementary skill set you might have to work on. Apart from that, I would probably say, as a product manager, you might want to have a design thinking skill set. So basically, you might also have to think about how you'd want to the user to use your product in the most seamless way possible. So you might have to want to brush upon or read upon user experience, understanding user experience, user interface, how users how people generally interact with let's say their mobile phones or website to build a picture. So I would say basically from project management and marketing experience, you probably have you have an understanding of identifying users and have an analytical approach product management. You might have to balance it out with being able to identify problems and being able to build something which really involves the customer. So that would require some design thinking.
Okay. Thanks, Kushaal. So just to summarize, say there are 6 buckets. Design. Obviously, as a product manager, you'll be working with design folks to be working on UX, UI issues, technology, engineering. You need to understand how products get built. Project management, you rightly said, guessing that you know how projects are managed, how sprints are run, what agile is. Marketing is an important tactic. When you ship out your product, a lot of companies put emphasis on the product managers, making sure that they are communicating, and you're also looking at aligning your marketing teams, right? It's not just that you have shipped the product out, the feature out. There are release notes, making sure that the end user gets to know how to use that feature, onboarding, first time usage, PR. You have to work with the PR teams to make sure that your clients or customers know what the product is. So marketing, project management, design, technology, execution, acquisition, retention, and then analytics part. So a product manager's role encompasses these 6 to 8 sort of main buckets, and with time, as you work across different companies, you will sort of master certain sort of skill sets, and it takes time, right? You can't sort of become good at acquisition on day one. You'll be working at a B2C company, you'll work from 0 to 1, and you'll understand how acquisition works. You will go and work for another company, and different companies also put more emphasis on different buckets depending on how the company is structured. Cool. Let's move on to Swaroop's question. Even though I answered on chat, Ankit would be eager to answer that question, pretty sure. Each PM role is varied in nature. So what is the criteria used to shortlist any PM, right? Well, especially for folks like us who have 6 years of experience.
Go I'll just take a shot at Saro's question. I mean, Nikunj also does hiring and Kushaal also does hiring. I also look after hiring in my company. So I believe Saroop is already a senior product manager. So when we shortlist, let's say someone who has 6 years experience and above, and I'll at least talk from a B2C perspective, I look out for people who have similar work ex, right? Let's say, so I work in gaming, so I would prefer someone from gaming, right? And I can even go more specific. Let's say someone has managed retention in gaming. So then I would, let's say, hire, and if I'm looking out for someone who has managed retention, I would probably prefer him. But then again, I can be agnostic as well. Let's say in e-commerce, I might be agnostic, right? Let's say a Swiggy PM can go and work for a Flipkart, for Flipkart as well. Or let's say he can go and work in let's say he can work in Tiny, or let's say, basically, I would say that for an e-commerce, I would be, let's say, agnostic, but let's say specific industry like edtech, if someone has, built something in edtech and Upgrad is hiring, they might prefer someone who has already worked in edtech, right? Or let's say, as Nikunjan mentioned, it depends on the scale, depends on the specific skill. If you have, let's say, a certain specific skill, let's say if you were to able to scale the company from 1 to 100, then, I mean, I would look out for that, right? If I'm looking out for someone like that. And I believe you should always, highlight the impact which you have been able to make in the resume so that, it becomes easy for me to shortlist, right? And if someone has, let's say, 6 years of work experience, I definitely look out for leadership experience. How many product managers you're managing, or how many APMs you're managing, or how many product analysts you're managing, or let's say if you're involved in hiring and stuff as well. And of course, we do a small background check as well from our peers, from our network. How's the person and how's the person performing, and what is his pedigree and everything else. But then again, to each his own, right? Everyone has their own criteria.
Yeah, very sad. Kushaal, you want to have a crack at it?
So I think Ankit has done a good job in addressing all of these cases. But something which I'd like to add from a candidate or someone who is a product manager who's trying to get into a company perspective is if I was, let's say, on the hiring side of on the other side of the hiring company, I might probably be impressed if you are able to demonstrate a depth in the industry knowledge in which my product is functioning, right? Let's say I am on the hiring board for Uber. If you're able to probably send me a case study work which talks about or which suggests new features which Uber can introduce in a specific market, along with just your application, it's definitely going to wow me, because I feel you're very vested in joining the company. You're very interested, and I might even probably make a bias over let's say the expected work experience or the background where you come from to give you a shot at an interview. So a lot depends on the kind of research which you do and how you show it and how you demonstrate your interest in the company as well.
Yeah. Cool. So there's one more question from Vishal. You had asked, please let me know the growth for e-commerce product manager in retail sector. He works at something like Tata Chroma, which has omni-channel presence. So Vishal, could you elaborate? Even I'm not sort of clear on the question. So basically, you want to know the growth for e-commerce products and retail sector. I didn't sort of understand. So do you mean how do e-commerce products grow in a particular say category? Is that the question?
Or are you talking about your career growth in this segment? It will be good to clarify that, Vishal.
Yeah. Vishal, you can unmute yourself or put it on chat, whatever you're comfortable with. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hey, Vishal.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
We can hear you.
So what I am asking is the growth. So what I am asking is the growth for PM in the retail sector.
Okay. Personal
So
growth.
in terms of the challenges, in terms of the paths that can lead to, in terms of what all the further opportunities would be there in terms of getting into Flipkarts or the Swiggy or the Zomatos.
Okay. Got it. So I think you mean say you're working in that particular sector and you want to transition into something like Flipkart or Swiggy. How can you use your existing experience? So you need to sort of be aware of what Flipkart or whatever your dream company is doing with respect to any movements in the sector that you're part of. Say Amazon ne grocery, में say assuming grocery is a sector that you're already part of. So you understand that sector, or say even if you're not part of that sector, you need to show that affinity कि मुझे इतना पता है about that sector, and obviously you need to figure out these specific folks at that company and basically pitch to them with respect to what matters to them, right? There needs to be some overlap. Say you build your expertise in retail, and retail as a sector needs to be important for the role that you're applying at. So you need to make sure that there's some sync, wherein obviously a lot of folks even say when I'm hiring at Haptic, I would want someone who has worked in a SaaS company, even if he's not a PM, he understands how SaaS businesses work. So just to sort of, I hope I've answered that. Ankit, Kushal, over to you to take your.
Yeah, probably what I would add to what you said, Nikunj, is that I'll probably also try to talk to some people in the company which I want to apply to, let's say Flipkart, understand how product management is structured, product development cycle is structured, what kind of tools they use, what do they value, right, in people working in the organization. Some companies, for example, Amazon values hardworkingness, right? You really would want to like put everything you got to be even considered to getting into Amazon. They expect you to work hard, basically, and they expect you to be really data driven. So it'll be good to know what core traits these companies are looking for in candidates, and that you can obtain that by speaking to people inside. They might. And it always has worked for me. What has worked for me is trying to get someone inside the company refer you for a role works out the best than just applying on the portal. So you might want to like build a picture first, and then you cater or you I would say structure your resume and how you address interview questions accordingly. So that is an important consideration.
So, especially in interviews, I see that you are at a disadvantage because you don't really know the company and how that they work. I try to make it a point to ask the HR who are the people who would be interviewing me beforehand, and I would stalk. This is sort of my trick that I would stalk the shit out of them on LinkedIn. Anything that they have shared in the last 3 months and any talk that they have given, I would know it by heart. So I know what matters to that person. Say if I know I'm interviewing for a company and this company gives too much gyan or say a particular topic, I have to make sure that I understand what he's talking about. So there's something relatable and those values in the interview and when I talk to that person. Does anybody have any questions? We are running out of time. It's also 5 more minutes. If you have anything, just put it down on the chat.
Parul has raised hand. Parul, do you have a question?
Hi guys. So I have one question regarding B2B companies. Like let's suppose I'm a manager at a B2B product company which is already established and a good client, client base. So my question is, what if a big account, asked for a feature which no other client wants? So what would a project manager do for that feature? Like, should they build it or not? Like for B2C, it is like the more request you'll get for a particular feature, you will be able to, put it in your product. But for B2B company, what should we do in that case?
I can take a crack at this, but I would open the forum for Kushal first.
I think thanks for the question, Parul. You pretty much asked the question which I grapple with on a daily basis. So we do have a client who probably is a big account for us, and they sometimes come up with features which probably no one else needs, but they need, and they say they need it, right? How probably I would maneuver around this is first ask the hard questions like, okay, you need the feature, but trying to get into what motivates them to ask this feature, right? Why do you need it? What does it solve? What's the business need which they are looking to solve with this? And you should be convinced as a product manager that this adds value to the customer as well as adds value to the platform which you're working on. And thirdly, it should not complicate what you've already built. So you have to balance all of these, I would say, traits before either going back to the client and saying yes or just saying no. Or probably saying that we will consider it if you have a good relationship. It's we can always say that we will consider it. We'll put it on a backlog. If someone is also asked for it, we will probably then do it. Or what works best for me is give them an alternative, right? If you're able to address the business need with what you already have in a certain way via customization, you should do that instead of building something new entirely. And that is pretty much what I do most of the times at GetMyParking today. So it's weighing all of these considerations before saying yes or no. And typically, since you mentioned it's a big company and it's established, you generally would not worry about telling no to this client and then they walking away. It completely depends on what kind of relationship your company has with the client. But if you package it in a way that the client understands it, I think that's the way to go forward here.
Okay. So just to sort of summarize that, I work at Haptic, which is a purely B2B company, and we have a strategy, right? Our strategy is to automate conversations. Say, if you are a company, you get 10 mil chats or X number of chats on a day-to-day basis. Our pitch to our clients is we'll make sure that human intervention is limited and our bots will automate X% of their chats. That's the company level vision, and that's the pitch to every client. And basis that, we build like a roadmap. Roadmap is basically the product team will work towards what goes into what goes to engineering for the next 3 months, kya banne wala, and we are aligned to that roadmap because we are aligned sales towards it. We know that currently we have X clients, but we know that we'll build Y, Z and another feature basis which we might, obviously the opportunity cost is huge, right? Today you might agree to this one client. I've been in a situation where the client said ki CRM bana do hamare liye. I'm not in that business. We don't want to build a CRM. There are thousands of CRM companies, and you need to align to your vision, because you understand product teams are aligned to what sales is selling. They are aligned to what the company wants to do in the next 1 year. So if you basically bow down to one customer, you might make him happy, but 6 months down the line, your product vision will falter. And jo tum chahte the, say you have a vision 6 months down the line to achieve quarter on quarter revenue X, you won't be able to achieve that.
Okay.
Cool. So,
Thank you so much.
Right. Let's do like one final question. I just discovered a very nice question from Pari. So I'll probably voice it out loud. Maybe Ankit or Nikesh, you could give it a crack, and then I'll probably try to address it.
Yeah.
So Pari says we have a primary user of a product who use a particular feature heavily. However, we are looking for the right strategy to upsell other features. How do we do that?
Okay.
Basically introducing something new.
Ankit, this is your forte, B2C, upsell your features.
Retain the user as much as you can. And basically find out the sweet points, right? Find out the sweet spots, find out the happy journey, find out the place where the user is the most satisfied, right? There would be, let's say, wow moments wherein he's actually getting the most value out of your product. And that's where you, let's say, plug in your new features, right? Plug in your new, product which you are selling to him, right? I mean, that's easier said than done, but then that's how I approach it, right? So I'll give you an example of that. We recently launched Leaderboard on Rummy Circle. Rummy Circle is again a Rummy app on which we launched a new feature called Leaderboard, right? Now, let's say if someone wins a game, right? He's happy there. He has earned some money. We, on the result screen, we just show him, hey, opt in for Leaderboard. So he opts in. So we realize that people who are winning and then going to that result screen, they have a more chance of opting in for the new feature, right? That's a happy journey because they won real cash there. And you're like, hey, why don't you, let's say, opt in for the Leaderboard? That's how we do it, I think, yeah.
Right. Probably something which I'll add to what Ankit has mentioned is very valid points. You need to find what the sweet spot is for the user. So essentially, we have a clear use case here, or like clear case here that there are certain users who use a particular feature very heavily. I think there are several factors which goes into deciding if it's right time to introduce a new feature. So generally, you do not want to upset. You generally have something called a core funnel or like a core user behavior. Basically, for example, Spotify user opens the app and listens to some certain number of songs for a certain number of time. That might be a core metric on a daily basis which you track. If I want to introduce something new, I'll probably introduce. You'll have to do a lot of experimentation. Obviously, you do not want to break this core user behavior. I'll probably experiment it with a small set of users, get some feedback, see what they're doing. Is it impacting metrics? Of course, this is probably not a significant set of users who can provide an answer for the entire, if you launch a feature to the entire product. But enough information for me to decide if I want to expand rolling out this feature or not. So I would probably also, this is a standard way of approaching new features is that we introduce something for a small group, get feedback, see if the metrics are not being impacted, and slowly expand the circle to everyone. So that's how Uber does it. Uber has introduced the fast features, right? Not everyone gets it. It has identified users who might adopt it the first. They are targeted in the beginning. And if they get like a good reception or like good feedback from these users, then they slowly open to everyone. And pretty much that's the strategy to go about here.
So guys, there's one last question from Swaroop. If the sales team has sold, basically they had told about a feature which does exist, but the customer onboards and they realize the feature is not there, would you still build it? So my take on that is you should never sell your roadmap. You only sell stuff that has already built. Never sell your roadmap, especially being part of a B2B business. And a lot of time this happens. I'm not saying, I have seen that my sales guy has told the business ki translation hai, ye hai, and we didn't have language features altogether. And we had to sort of build those ad hoc because that customer was huge. So it depends on a case-to-case basis if that customer is really important for you and you don't want to lose it. And obviously, if this particular feature you try to push back on it, but if it's like a blocker wherein the customer will drop off and his ACV is say really significant for you, then you might build it. So depends on how important the customer is and this feature is for that customer. But just one sort of never sell your own map. Only sell stuff that has already been built. Cool. I think we should end the session. We're already about 6:15. Guys, if you have any questions, we would love to have them. Reach out to us on LinkedIn or just email us on pmschoolx@gmail.com.
You guys can add us on LinkedIn and just like even, I mean, you can reach out to
Talk to us.
if you want,
For simple questions, you can reach out to us. Don't worry, we want to help you. Just one request. Ankit will kill me if I don't do it. Can you switch on your cameras? This is for social media. We want to share like a snapshot of this session today on LinkedIn. So if you don't mind, that is, just switch on your camera. I'll just take like a picture.
Hey, hi guys.
Hi.
Wow, it's so great to see you guys.
Maafi.
We should do a session like this always, right? Like.
Sorry. I'm taking a screenshot. Hope you guys don't mind. Cool.
I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time out to come here and talk, guys. Really appreciate it. Please stay safe during these times. And we're always happy to help you with any questions in product management. Reach out to us in PM School. And we'd love to hear more from you.
Thank you, Kushal. Thank you for your time. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Kushal.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.